Once again, I'm back here at DIA. It's 10 o'clock at night. I want to haunt me a red eye out to Tampa, Florida. Why? Why the hell not? I'm going to try to squeeze my fat ass into a Speedo. Go lay out on the beach. Hope the hell old Save the Whale Foundation don't show up again. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button as I make my way to the plane. Follow me along as I gimp across America. Metal and whiskey song! Alright, man, I made it here to Tampa. About an hour late because, plane was delayed, so I'm here an hour late. I got in about 6 o'clock. By the time I get over here to the rental car, which I'm in now, I got about an hour and 20-minute drive south into that Sarasota area. And then I'm going to find me some breakfast because my fat ass is hungry. Currently, I'm driving across some long-ass highway that cuts from Tampa into St. Petersburg. I think it said no exit for like 15 miles. So I don't know if it's really that long or not. But it's pretty cool. I haven't been here in a while, so I think last time I was here they were doing construction on it. And I still see some traffic cones out here, and it's probably been at least 3 years since I've been here, maybe 4. Had to fly out here and help move my daughter to over to Texas, so now she's moved back. Straight ahead there is St. Petersburg. We're getting close to there, so we're coming up on one of my favorite parts of this drive. It's called the Skyway Bridge. The big ass bridge that goes up high in the air and up over the ocean here. Scared the living shit out of my mother, so she kind of closes her eyes and hides her face and what have you. Once we get up that way, I'll show you some of it. So that's part of the old bridge right there. People go ahead and get out on there and do a lot of fishing. Now, I did live out here in Florida when I was a teenager, and I have been on that old bridge there. My dad drove me across it a couple times. It's kind of creepy back then, but it's all good, man. All right, we're getting real close to that Skyway Bridge. And I haven't been out here in 3 years, and there is still congestion in the same damn spots. I'm sure it all has to do with that morning rush hour traffic, because most of the time I fly out here, it's on a red eye, and I get the same damn traffic every morning. Anyway, I'm here on I-75 headed south. Still about 25 minutes from my destination because freaking traffic and congestion every time. Alright, well, I'm here at the hotel. Couldn't check in till 3 o'clock, and y'all know I got down to the area probably about 8 o'clock this morning. Had to run around, do a bunch of shit, so I went to one of my favorite breakfast places called Metro Diner. Took my daughter and her friends there, and then we kind of, did some other crap and what have you. Finally got to check into my hotel. Took about a 2-hour nap, and we just got back from a Japanese steakhouse. First time I've had a lot of that Japanese food, whatever. It's pretty damn good. My daughter's friend, her boyfriend, is a chef there, so he did all the cooking for us and that. And then I went and picked up this New Riff single barrel. You know, I don't like drinking out of plastic, so my daughter ran into a store and found this little rock glass that says Daddy Sippy Cup. I fucking sick or what? Hell right. So anyway, I'm gonna have a pour. Tomorrow morning, I'm taking a small adventure. I'll let y'all tag along. So, till tomorrow, man. Cheers. Pretty sure this is the most lovely angle to see me. Anyway, it's morning time. I'm here in Sarasota, Florida. I really didn't make a lot of plans coming down here as a last minute trip, but I have found a couple distilleries, so I'm gonna go to one today and one tomorrow that actually, from what I read, they distill their own product, and we'll go try them out. Never heard of them. Most of what's out in this area, they do rum, at least 95% rum. Some do vodka. So, like I said, I found two that I'm gonna go try out. One will be today. It's about an hour and a half from here, so that's the last one. I'm only doing one today, and I will do one tomorrow as well. So I'm gonna get ready, head out to that first one. We'll see you when we get there.
Take the old guy to get some whiskey.
Tarpon Springs Oh, hello. I'm here in Tarpon Springs, Florida. Yeah, I almost said Tampon. We're gonna check out this Tarpon Springs Distillery here. Do a little tour. Taste some whiskey. That's what you get.
First of all, probably good to let you guys know my name. I'm Elias. I am the assistant distiller in the back here. Sometimes I'll be a tour guide up front, and I have more of a kind of hands-on, actual procedural-based tour than maybe most of the other people here, but yeah, hopefully we can all enjoy ourselves. We are a grain-to-glass distillery, so we actually create the ferment that we produce alcohol from to distill that alcohol away from the ferment. A lot of other distilleries around the nation, even distilleries that say craft distilleries, they will source alcohol already distilled into kind of a 55-gallon drum or like vessels, already distilled and produced, then redistill that or flavor it with something and say this is our product that we have produced. For us, we start with the grains on hand, raw grains, water, the actual cook, all the way through grain separation, through fermentation, through the distillation. First, just to kind of get solid footing of what we're looking at all around the place, Sparky over there is our steam generator. That's our electric boiler. We looked at getting the gas boiler. The city of Tarpon Springs was not exactly fond of that, so we ended up going electric. That's a large electric boiler and does every job that we need it to just great. That's where we source our steam. If we need to produce steam, it's going to be there. If we need to sanitize things or heat anything up, Sparky's going to be doing it for us. Right here behind you, you have Olaf. This is our chiller inside. We have Elsa outside, which is a significantly larger chiller. It's not a joke. Olaf and Elsa, they generate any cooling power that we need here. So if we need to keep the temperature down on the ferments or force cool our cook as we're cooking it, it's going to be Olaf and Elsa that achieve that job. Right here are our 3 fermentation tanks. This is Patton, Sherman, and Abrams. They are named after United States tanks to kind of match the theme of fermentation tanks. Right here, this is grain separation. So we don't have the names on them, but this is actually 2 different pieces of equipment right here. This is Doc Holliday, because Doc Holliday is a gunslinger. This kind of slings the liquid separate of the grains during the grain separation process. And this is Brian Auger, which is kind of a screw press auger, which we'll get to in a little bit. But this right here is Vinny. This is a 438-gallon stainless steel cooker. This is where the actual process starts. So this is from Vendome Incorporated. For us, the beginning of a cook day will look like charging this with about 350 gallons of water, right here to this 5th pin on this jacket. We will then agitate that water and heat it up. At about 160 degrees, we will add in our first fermentables. Now, your fermentables determine what product you are actually producing. If you want to make a whiskey, so far as United States law, it has to be 100% grain. You can't use any sugar or fruit or honey, anything like that. Will remove the whiskey identity. You're no longer producing a whiskey. If you want to produce a rum, it's going to be 100% cane product. So cane sugar, molasses. For us, we use 100% molasses. And then most of our other products, our moonshine or our gin, come from a base of grain and cane sugar. And excuse me, I'm a little light on breath. I'm talking myself silly. I'll just catch my breath for just a second. So we will heat that up. We'll hit 160 degrees. We'll add in the fermentables. We'll then hold at about 160 degrees with enzymes dosed in there to break down the starches within those grains. So if we're making a whiskey cook, it'll be 1,000 pounds of grain. Within those grains are starches, right? They actually make up the inside of the grain. Starches are linkages of hundreds of sugars that are all tied together with little oxygen molecules that bond them. And what we're doing is essentially heating them up and adding enzymes to break that oxygen bond, to break down those starches into shorter chain sugars. We really want to achieve 1 and 2 clusters of sugars chains because that's what our yeast are most effective at turning into alcohol. But we'll achieve those temperature holds, convert our starch to sugar, free that sugar into the actual liquid, and have produced our mash. From this point, you could pump into a fermentation tank and ferment. We actually have grain separation, so we separate the grains from the liquid. We essentially turn our mash into wash. The reason that we really do this is tannins within the husks of the grain. They are bitter. They're what's within dry wines, right? That kind of spicy, dry, harsh flavor. So we're looking to avoid that within our finished product, and it will actually keep that flavor. It'll stay all the way through into our finished spirits. So we remove it here in this stage, the grain separation. What this will look like for us is taking one of those pumps behind you. We'll plug it up to this cooker right here. We'll take one of our hoses and plug it into the top of that pump and go into this line arm up here. We'll turn the pump on and pull that mash into the pump, up that hose, into this line arm. This line arm actually goes around to the back of this rotary drum screen, this RDS, Doc Holliday, right? Inside this rotary drum screen, and I'll actually, if you guys want to get right here, I can turn it on for just a second. You'll be able to see it. So this is basically a big metal box that has similar to a dryer drum, right? It'll spin, and it has a kind of a mesh like net around the outside, right? So the grains get pumped into there. They get pumped into the back. It's spinning. And they have to climb over each one of these kinds of almost fins or walls within that RDS, optimizing their exposure to that net to allow the most amount of liquid to drain through and separate as we can. That spins and kind of sloshes that grain around. Most of the liquid drains off of the grains. We estimate about 70 to 80% of the liquid separates right here in the RDS. Those grains, the liquid, first of all, drains down into this pan right here, comes down this angle and comes out of the spout. We attach a hose right here and have, once again, one of our drums underneath this, collecting the wash about 50 gallons at a time as we pump it through the grain separation. So we get about 70 to 80% of the liquid off within this RDS. That 20 to 30%, still a crucial portion of our yield, comes out and falls down into this hopper. This is kind of like sloppy oatmeal. Like, it's a little bit more soupy than oatmeal, but it's very similar to the consistency of oatmeal. It falls down into here. In here is an auger press that just rotates and pushes that grain forward. It pushes it right here into the sleeve and eventually packs it against this cone right here. So we have actuated pressure to push this cone into place to hold that grain in the screw press, so it keeps packing in here until it squeezes the rest of the wash out and falls down into this receiving bay. But Then this eventually will push with enough force back like this, and that dry grain will come out kind of the consistency of like wet sawdust, like damp sawdust. We've pulled a majority, about 90 to 95% of the actual liquid out of the wash or the mash that we have created here. So like I said, we'll collect this into one of our drums and be steadily pumping it over into one of our 3 fermentation tanks. There's actually a fresh, I guess, relatively fresh, orange liqueur wash in Abrams, if anybody would like to take a peek. Feel more than welcome to go ahead and climb up this ladder. I'll let you know, if you step on it, it depresses, so it'll roll around at first, but if you put enough weight on it, you'll be solid. But you guys can take a peek up here and see the actual orange liqueur ferment. Take a peek at it. So you'll see some mild activity. We cooked that, I believe, Thursday of last week. So it was just about 5 days into fermentation. All right, so we will grain separate and pump into one of these fermentation tanks about 50 gallons at a time. After that, we will pitch our yeast, which is generally about 2 gallons of rehydrated yeast into one of these fermenters. The first step of 4 steps in fermentation is propagation. Yeast will increase its biomass, be able to actually not uptake, but process the material there to convert it into alcohol. The second step is, or second product that you will get is CO2, right? You'll see the kind of bubbling that we saw when you look up there to be significantly more intense the first couple of days of fermentation. It looks almost like a boiling kettle or something. That is part of the yeast's respiratory cycle. So they breathe out CO2 and it bubbles up. That's actually why the grain is up top as well, is that CO2 just kind of forcing up that solid material. Third is heat. That's why we have Olaf right here. That's our indoor chiller. To circulate cold water around the back of this fermentation tank, there's a jacket that doesn't actually come in contact with the wash, but cools down our fermentation to a healthy range. Yeast can get so hot that they actually commit thermal death, and then at that point are no longer producing alcohol. So we have to kind of bat them down in temperature, keep them where they need to be. And then fourth, of course, is alcohol, right? We're looking for alcohol. We're a distillery. The yeast produce alcohol. Generally, we'll finish at about 10 to 12% alcohol by volume in here. So you think about that as 500 to 550 gallons of liquid, about 10 to 12% alcohol. We're usually looking at about 50 to 55 gallons of actual booze from one of these fermentations. So we'll turn one of these as we distill it into just about one of those. Yeah. From that point, we will pump over into Amazing Grace, if you guys want to come this way. This is Amazing Grace. This is a 550-gallon copper pot still. It's a hybrid still, so we have both the pot and the column right there. This wood on the outside is where she gets her name, Amazing Grace. It comes from a church in Kentucky, I believe. It's the same wood on this as it is the condenser barrel up there. But this is where the actual distillation takes place. Essentially, we will pump that wash, ferment it out, about 10 to 12% alcohol by volume, over here into the still. We will then agitate it and heat it up. At about 175 degrees, alcohol vapor will start carrying off of that body of liquid and making its way throughout the equipment. The vapor just wants to carry up or occupy as much space as it can, so it'll take up this onion head, go up the line arm, come down right here and make its way into the column. So the column is where it gets a little bit tricky to explain, but essentially the alcohol vapor will always pass through the column, but the column might not be activated. The column's purpose is to induce reflux, right? So we chill the top, that kind of crown-looking piece up at the very top, that's a deflator. We chill that to about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, right? We then push this hot alcohol vapor at 175 plus degrees through the column. Well, it hits that ice-cold ceiling and condenses and rains back down, right? Each one of these sight glasses that you see indicates a tray right here. That tray is basically a somewhat solid piece of metal. There's little perforated holes with bubble caps on top of them. But essentially, it's a tray that the liquid will fall back down onto and then volatilize and turn back into a vapor. As this repeatedly happens, the alcohol will sort itself by boiling point within the column. We're essentially batting down the water and oils, anything that requires more energy to boil, turn into a vapor. It's not receiving enough, but the alcohol is. So the alcohol will stay at the top of the column while everything else gets pushed down and eventually out of the bottom of the column. So from this, we can control the proof of the product that we're actually producing, right? We can increase our proof, our alcohol concentration, or decrease it accordingly. This is great for something like a gin, where you can run off a neutral spirit that has not a lot of flavor because you're purifying the alcohol. It's great for flavor extraction, which I'll get to in just a second. It's not good for something like a whiskey. If you want to keep the source material's flavor, you don't want a lot of purifying that alcohol because you're batting down the oils, knocking down the water that has the trace flavor from that source material. From that point, we will come over and come into our condenser barrel. Essentially, this is a large chilled barrel of water that has a worm coil that looks about like this, with the alcohol vapor coming through it and circulating around this tank many, many times to increase its surface area so it can cool down again back to a liquid, right? We will run the heads off and collect them in a separate little gallon pail. We usually get about 1 to 1.5 gallons of heads from a 500-gallon ferment distillation. After that, we will get into the smooth hearts portion of the run, that mid portion, good, clean, sweet, smooth ethanol. After that, we will get to the tails portion. So if you've heard of heads and tails in alcohol distillation, they are essentially the very first alcohols that volatilize and the very last alcohols that volatilize. So the very first stuff that we push off and makes its way through the equipment is going to taste very bad. It's acetone, right, nail polish remover, and ethyl acetate, which has kind of a bitter chalkiness to it. After that, we will remove that heads from that gallon or gallon and a half collected separate. We will then collect the hearts, and after we've pushed all of the hearts out of the body of liquid, we will increase our cooling load once again to stop any alcohol pushing over the tails. They taste kind of like rotten eggs and dish soap, kind of a mix of those two things. They're not good, right? So we don't want to push that over into our actual collected product, so we'll wind this all down. There's also the aging process, right? All of our whiskeys are aged, our aquavit is aged, our rum is also aged. This all happens over at the, I call it our barrel house. It used to be the Bahamian Church here in West Florida. I think it was the first Bahamian church in West Florida, built in 1892, but it's about a block away. It's right down the street. I'll point it out to you guys when we get back up there. Before we do that though, I want to talk about Artie. This is our kind of R&D, more crafty, wild side still. So if we're looking at creating any new products or trying anything out we think has potential, it's probably going to happen on Artie before we make a full-sized batch of it. For our bottling procedure, it is that spout filler up there. We hand fill just bottles at a time. I'll actually point out real quick while we're back here, all of our whiskeys, they'll age at generally about 110 proof, and then when we pull them out of the barrel, we'll try them at a couple of different proofs to ensure exactly what is going to taste the best, right? 106, 102, 98. So we'll proof down a couple of different samples, and we actually leave the labels blank so that we can hand fill the information in on each and every bottle so far as the batch. There's a couple of different cooperages. One is Gainesville, Georgia. Another one is Black Swan. Those are our primary two cooperages that we use. This is the moonshine, yes. So this is 100 proof. This is Appalachian style high rye. So this has 400 total pounds of grain, 600 pounds of sugar. It's going to be, kind of a grain bitter on the finish, kind of soft, sweet up front. What I'm pouring now is our 94 proof checkerboard bourbon. So the name checkerboard on this product comes from a mixture of red Bloody Butcher corn and Florida 401 black rye. This also has about 10% barley. I believe it is 60% corn, 30% rye, and 10% barley. Most of the grains, so we get our grains from Riverbend, North Carolina, Riverbend Malt House and Mill House. Oh, apologies. But a lot of our grains come from Florida, not all of them, but I believe every product that we have, either the sugar or at least one of the grains in them comes from Florida, goes to North Carolina to be malted, milled, and then sent back down to us.
Originally, the concept was kind of like this farm potatoes.
This is aged for 18 months. This is It says batch number 2 on it. This was aged alongside what was labeled as our batch 1. So they're kind of brothers. But this is exclusively Florida grain, except from that barley, is my understanding. Mm-hmm. It's going to be kind of a sugary, almost kind of candy sweet with kind of black pepper spice on the finish. But yeah, aged about 18 months in an increased aging barrel, so it's optimized for its aging speed. They cut like honeycomb patterns in a giant spiral around the inside of the barrel, then char it, so there's more surface area.
How big's the barrel?
I believe these were all 24s that the bourbon was aged in. This is my pride and joy. This is our rye malt whiskey. So malt is a key word. If you have rye whiskeys and you're kind of averse to the spice, this is going to be a whole lot more calm on that spice flavor. Awesome. Alrighty. So this is 102 proof. This is my favorite product that we produce here.
Are these kind of cast proof or?
This is not cast proof, but I believe it was only about 106 before we proofed it down just a little bit. But this stuff has kind of a rich caramel sweetness that holds for a majority, if not the. This actually won the San Francisco 2022 World Spirits Competition double gold medal.
This is a rye malt.
So the grains go through a malting process. Generally, breweries use malted grains. We use exclusively malted grains here, which are about 10 times the price of raw grains, standard grains. But they are more ready to convert from starch into sugar. They're a little bit easier to cook with, as well as they yield kind of a sweeter flavor. It'll dampen the spice on the rye. It'll kind of sweeten up any flavors that are already there. It's a little bit easier to work with.
That one's some pretty good shit.
All right, next up is the wheat whiskey. You might have heard of wheated whiskeys, wheated bourbon. That refers to the mash bill. So essentially if you had like a wheated rye, that would say that 51% or more of the corn, of the grain in that whiskey is rye, for it to be a rye whiskey. Then of the remaining 50%, 25% or more is wheat for it to be a wheated rye. So your actual mash bill determines the identity of the product you're producing when it comes to whiskeys. But this is really the runner-up to the rye in my book. So far as my taste personally, this is our wheat whiskey. Some unique flavor for a whiskey here, all good obviously, but kind of the lightest in palate of the whiskeys that we have, kind of like a sweet wheat cracker.
Typical wheat smell.
I don't know what I did wrong, but this is my lunch now.
I'll tell you what you did wrong. You're drinking at 1:44 in the afternoon. Some good booze.
That was really good.
I'm not a good day drinker.
Elias, take it to the conference.
Yeah,
That one's like the rye without the rye.
Absolutely. So if we produce this in Scotland, this would be a Scotch. Here in the United States, it is American single malt. You can only produce Scotch in Scotland. This is 800 pounds of dark Munich malt barley and 200 pounds of, I believe, Speakeasy barley malt that we actually peat smoke out back by hand out here. So this is about 200 pounds of this is actually peat smoked. The peat is not super present. Awesome, okay. Sweet. So this is going to be more wood, less smoke and peat than the standard Scotch that you would have.
It's a little. On the real strong Scotch, the peat really comes through, and it's a little harsher.
I hear you.
The single malt heated scotches, I'm not a fan of. I'd rather have it blended.
Really?
And are they all oak barrels, or do you have mixed wood?
So they are all white oak, generally charred.
For being what it is, it's actually pretty good. It's definitely better than Stray and a Half. Well, it's my last day here in Florida. I did pick up 2 bottles from that Tarpon Springs distillery up in Tarpon Springs, Florida. I'll have to show you what those are after I get back home. Getting ready to check out my hotel. Then I'm gonna head up to this other distillery about 20 minutes up the road. I'm gonna check them out too. If I get a bottle, I get a bottle. If I don't, I don't. Once I get home, I'll show them all to you, whatever I picked up. So stick around. I gotta finish loading the car here. Checkout's in like 10 minutes, so we'll see you there. All right, so I'm out here in Bradenton, Florida at the Loaded Cannon Distillery. We can go in and check this place out, taste some whiskey. Come on.
Out of,
Okay.
but you can pick 5 of everything. What do you call the hippie's wife?
I don't know.
Mississippi. These 2 things here, these are called thieves. That's how we sample barrels. Put the sharp end inside the bung hole, put your thumb over the back like a straw, pull out like this and sample it. I sacrifice myself 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 times a day sampling so they have good products.
Hard job, but
Somebody's got to do it. Yeah.
It's the kind of job I'd
Anyways,
take.
big barrels, small barrels. This is the world famous Dippin' Dog that you never heard of. So if you lived in Ireland or Scotland in the 1800s, you worked in a distillery, every employee would have one. They'd put it in their bootleg, they'd go to work. When the boss wasn't looking, they'd open up the whiskey, throw it in, pull it out, cap it, put it back in their bootleg, take it home and drink it. And that's where modern day bootlegging got its name from. Now that's my pride and joy. That was made in Huntsville, Alabama, Redstone Arsenal, the Army base, the munitions department. They took a copper plate, put a black and white Xerox copy of our logo on it, put a detonation blanket on it, detonated, imprinted the logo from a black and white Xerox copy. Imagine the energy. Okay, these are 2 C3 bourbon barrels. This is what bourbon looks like at about 3 years in Florida. Bourbon ages incredibly fast in Florida. Most people think it's the temperature. A lot of it has to do with temperature, but most of it is the barometric pressure moves pretty fast because we live on the coast. Now these are, of course, when you make whiskey and you make rum, it's completely clear, it has no color and very little flavor. All the color comes from the barrel and about 60% of the flavor comes from the barrel as well. Now these are barrel char level 4. We're going to talk about charring and toasting a little bit later, but char level 4 is called an alligator char. If you ever figured out why it's called an alligator char, take a look inside. See that? Looks just like alligator skin. So anyways, my name is Steve Milligan. I'm the owner, distiller, janitor, plumber, electrician, tour guide, forklift operator. Retired chemical engineer, worked for Dow Chemical for 35 years. All over, I've lived in India, Kuwait, Korea, Saudi Arabia, Canada, Texas, Louisiana, a few other places in between. When I got to Saudi Arabia, I found out there is no alcohol. It's illegal, it's against their religion. So being a good engineer, I went to the hardware store, had some help from some friends, bought 2 pressure cookers and started making my own alcohol. Because of that, I got a nickname from my father, which was the Loose Cannon. So the original name of the distillery was Loose Cannon. Unfortunately, there's a beer out of Maryland called Loose Cannon, so we had to change the name to Loaded Cannon. So now we've won several awards. USA Today named us one of the top distilleries in the United States. Been voted the best distillery in Florida 3 years in a row. Jalapeno vodka has won every award we've ever put it in for. And our bourbon's rated 93 points by the Bartender Spirits Association in San Francisco. We actually won the gold medal there and beat out Jack Daniels and Buffalo Trace. We're pretty lucky on that one. So.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this is a trivia tour. I have 5 trivia questions. If you get them all right, I'll give you a free cocktail. The first one is, first 3 have to do with presidents and alcohol. And the first one is, of all the presidents, only one owned a distillery. Who was it and what did he make?
George Washington.
What did he make?
Whiskey.
Rye whiskey, very good. One of the first people to ever get that one. Which president was a certified bartender?
I don't know.
Abraham Lincoln.
I was gonna guess Abraham, but
Interesting.
Okay, let me see.
maybe
which
it
one.
is George Washington.
Okay, which president passed out before we could swear in the senators at his inauguration?
I want to say Ulysses S. Grant, but I don't.
It's in the right time frame.
In the right time frame.
What time frame is that?
It's right after Lincoln.
Right after Lincoln?
Yeah, late 1800s.
Maybe it was Lincoln if he was a bartender.
It was actually right after Lincoln. It was Andrew Johnson.
Andrew Johnson.
So anyways, this is our corn silo, probably the most unusual corn silo you've ever seen. It's rectangular, but it's also divided into 3 sections. The top section holds 45,000 pounds of locally grown corn. The middle section is a big funnel with 2 augers. And below the augers are a hammer mill and a roller mill, so we can mill our own grains. Our standard bourbon is going to be about 70% corn, 10 wheat, 10 rye, 10 barley. It's very unusual because it's 4 grain, but it's also unusual because the rye and the wheat are exactly the same, which was pretty unusual.
Right.
But I like it because that Florida rye that we use has a kind of a kick to it, and the wheat kind of balances that out. Now, if you went into a liquor store and you saw whiskey, bourbon, and straight bourbon, most people have absolutely no idea what the difference is. I'm sure you do. But a whiskey is simply defined as 100% grain-based alcohol that's distilled between 125 and 190 proof. A bourbon, on the other hand, all bourbons are whiskeys, but not all whiskeys are bourbons. A bourbon has to be made in the United States. It'd be at least 51% corn. Has to touch a barrel. And of course, it has to be distilled between 125 and 160 proof. Much narrower and much lower, and that's where there's more flavor. That's why bourbon is so, that's why bourbon helps.
It's delicious.
Now, a straight bourbon is the mother of all. Made in America, 50% corn, 100% grain. Aged in a barrel. It's got to be a new barrel. Got to be a charred barrel. Got to be an American oak barrel. Has to be distilled between 125 and 160. Has to go in the barrel between 110 and 125 proof. Has to go in the bottle between 80 and 125 proof. Cannot be adulterated in any way, shape, or form. Must be aged more than 2 years. If it's aged more than 4 years, there's no requirement for the age to be stated on the bottle. Now, this is called a square barrel. It was supposedly invented by the master brewer of Fat Tire. It's pretty cool for a couple reasons. This is what the wood looks like. This one's out of service right now. This is what the wood looks like. Wood actually fits in the slots like that. Because it has these grooves, it actually ages about 10% faster than a normal barrel.
Okay.
You see any reason why this would be pretty cool though?
Yeah, I think it looks cool.
Well, it looks cool, but also you can put any barrel, you can put any wood in any one of those slots. So I can put American oak, French
Almost like
oak.
a different stave flavor.
I can mix and match and give you very unique flavors.
Kind of like what Maker's Mark does when they put the different staves.
Staves inside the barrels, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yep, so. Okay, we're gonna have 2 more trivia questions. You go into a bar and you ask the bartender for a shot of whiskey. Why do they call it a shot?
Because you traded for a bullet.
Exactly right, but let me give you the whole story. So back in the early 1800s, there was a German glassmaker by the name of Otto Schott who formed the Schott Glass Company. He invented a small glass he called the shot glass. Germans hated it. It was way too small. Americans loved it, particularly in the Old West. In the Old West, a lot of people didn't have money, but everybody had bullets. A bullet was worth 12 cents. You'd go into a bar, put a bullet on a bar top, you get 12 cents worth of whiskey. Now today, if you put that same bullet on that bar top, that means I'm gonna kick your ass. But back in the old time, that means I want some whiskey. Okay, where did the term wet my whistle come from?
That I don't know.
So if you went into a British pub in the early 1900s, they'd give you a mug. They'd fill that mug with whatever you wanted to drink. When your mug was empty, on the handle of the mug was whistle. Blow the whistle and they'd come wet the whistle. I actually have one of those mugs in the tasting room. I'll show it to you guys. Okay, we're going to talk about barrels now. My favorite subject. Standard barrels, 53 gallons. Supposedly before World War II, the standard barrel was 40 gallons. Why did it change? Well, because during the war, everybody was fighting. Nobody was cutting wood. So wood supplies got really low. And the government's concern was when the war was over, no wood, no houses, people are going to be very upset. So they decided to ration wood. They went to distilleries and they asked them, what can you do to save wood? The only thing we can do is to make bigger barrels. Because the bigger the barrel, the less wood it used per gallon of alcohol. So they ordered them to make the biggest barrel they could, and that was 53 gallons, because that was the biggest barrel that would fit in the rack and not collapse it. That's why they're 53. Now the standard barrel has 4 parts. The end cap, these are called hoops. This piece of wood is called a stave. Then you have the bung or the bunghole, which is over on this side. That's the entry point. Now the people that make barrels are called coopers. Coupa is the Latin word for vessel. So coopers are the people that make vessels. There's 3 things they're going to do to this wood before it ever touches alcohol. We're going to pretend these pieces of wood from this barrel are inside the barrel here. I know they're not, but we're going to pretend they're in here. The first thing they're going to do is called seasoning. And if you've cut firewood, you know what seasoning is. That's leaving the wood out in the open. The sap dries, the pores open up. That allows the alcohol to move in and out of the wood. If it's wet wood or green wood, it doesn't work. It's got to be dry. Usually the drying periods are 6 months to 2 years, somewhere in that range. And of course, the longer you want them the longer you want to dry them out, the more it's going to cost. Now the second thing they're going to do is the most important in my opinion. It's called toasting. Toasting is where they're going to take the wood, they're going to put it in an oven at about 500 degrees. The length of time it's in the oven determines the amount of toast. Now this happens to be a medium toast, and that's a light toast. Now why is the toasting important? Because the darker the wood, the sweeter the whiskey. And that's because when you toast the wood, you're converting the starch inside the wood to vanillins and sugars and the flavors that we like in our whiskey. So all you got to do is heat it up. And of course, the higher the heat it, the more darker it's going to be. This will be more sweet. This will be more astringent. Now the last thing they're going to do is called the char. And you've already seen the char level 4 over there back on the other place. When they char it, what they're going to do is they're going to have the barrel assembled except for the end caps. They're going to put a propane torch on the inside. They're going to burn the walls, and the length of time determines the amount of char. Now, typically what we'll do, well, by the way, this is the char level 1. That's the char level 2. And that's the char level 3. And the char level 4 is, of course, the one over there you've already seen. And when you get to char 3 and char 4, something really interesting happens. See this black line? That's actually activated carbon. So as the alcohol goes through it, it not only gives it some flavors, it actually takes some of the smaller molecules out and prevents like methanol and things like that. I've never seen a scientific proof of that, but that's what I've been told, so I'll go with it. Now, one of the sad things about this barrel is when I fill this barrel up with 53 gallons and I wait 2 years here in Florida, I'm going to lose about 20%. That same number in Kentucky is about 7%, because much milder conditions. We're going to lose about 20%. What evaporates is called the angel's share. What soaks in the wood is called the devil's cut. Now, 3 years ago, a Catholic priest showed up at the front door and said he would eliminate the devil's cut by doing an exorcism. So he did a full exorcism of the whole distillery. And at the very end, he said, well, I gave the devil's cut to the angels. And I said, well, you're supposed to give it back to me. But he said, well, because I can't prove that. He said, I know it. so anyways, he gave the devil's cut to the angels, which is not exactly what I wanted him to do. Any questions on barrels? Now, one of the things we do on here, so we get our barrels from the West Virginia Great Barrel Company. If you look here, it's got the signature of the man that made the barrel. It's got the emblem of the company. Come down here, it has TMC3. TMC3 means medium toast, char level 3. which means inside this barrel is going to look just like that, without the grooves. And then, of course, it's got the date the barrel was made as well, which is pretty cool. Now, behind us is a big blue tank. That's molasses, 6,000 gallons of molasses that comes from Clewiston. We use that to make our dark rum. We actually make our dark rum in Buffalo Trace barrels. We soak it in a wood called Mongolian oak that gives it a sweet, smoky flavor. So first day we started up, I'll tell you guys a little story. A truck showed up with 6,000 gallons of molasses. Guy runs his hose to the bottom nozzle. Somehow something got loose. The hose ruptured, and we had 3,000 gallons of molasses. We had 3,000 gallons of molasses all over the floor. The poor truck driver was completely covered in molasses, man. It was terrible. We're going to talk about bottling. Oh, by the way, let me tell you a little joke. So a pirate walks into a bar, got a hook for a hand, a patch on his eye. And the bartender looks at him and says, "Jack, what happened to you?" "Oh, I was in a terrible fight. A guy pulled out a sword and he cut my arm off." "Why'd you lose your eye?" "That was bird poop." "Wait a minute, how did bird poop take out your eye?" "Well, it hit me the first day I had my hook." You know where pirates get their hooks, right? Secondhand stores. Follow me, we're going to talk about bottling now. Then we're going to get into the fun stuff. So this is our bottling line. On a really good day, we can do about 200 or 300 bottles an hour. On a bad day, we can do about 5. Usually the labeler is the weak spot. So we're going to hook this up to a tank. We're going to go through 2 filters, 2 pneumatic pumps. Alcohol comes through here, fills up the bottle, overflows back to the tank. When the stinger comes out, the government cares about taxes. In order to calculate taxes, they need 2 numbers, the proof and the volume. It's got to be on the front of every label and any alcohol. The proof has to be within 0.3% of what it says on the label, and the volume has to be within 0.5%. If it's not, you can be fined, and if it's malicious, you can be fined even more. So we're going to fill the bottle, we're going to cap it, we're going to roll on the label, we're going to shrink wrap the top. Everything goes into inventory, and I get actually getting audited this Friday. I get audited about every 2 months. I don't know why, but it's pretty regular.
So they can make sure they get their money.
Yeah. Now, in order to make alcohol, you need 3 things: water, sugar, and yeast. Water is critical, and Florida water is not the best in the world. Compared to Colorado, we're pretty bad shape. This is our water system on the wall here. Our water, we make the cleanest water you'll ever see. Our water comes over here, it goes through a carbon filter, a standard filter, reverse osmosis, UV treatment, carbon filtration, high efficiency resin grade, polishers, and another UV filter, and the water comes out pretty close to 0. That's the same water we're going to serve in the tasting room. Now, the second most important thing is sugar. Sugar defines the alcohol, how you get the sugar. You get sugar from agave, you're going to make tequila. You get sugar from sugarcane, you're going to make rum. You get sugar from grains, we're going to make whiskey. When you get sugar from grains, we call that mashing. That's pretty important. Now, there's 2 forms of mash. There's what's called sweet mash and sour mash. Of course, Jack Daniels is very famous for its sour mash. We do sweet mash. Sweet mash means everything goes in fresh, nothing gets recycled. Sour mash, everything goes through, and what's left over at the end, 10% of that gets recycled back to the beginning. We do a sweet mash because sour mash is typically reserved for those facilities that continuously run, and we don't. So, now this is our mash tank right here. She's 500 gallons. To mash, what we're going to do is we're going to fill this up with about 400 gallons of water, and we're going to add about 1,000 pounds of grain. We're going to start heating it up to about 109 degrees. We're going to add the grains and corns. Now, at 190 degrees, 2 things happen: pasteurization and gelatinization. Now, pasteurization is important because that's going to kill all the bacteria. If bacteria make it to the yeast, that's not very good for the yeast. And bacteria will eat your sugar, and they will not make alcohol. They'll make other stuff that you don't want. Now, the next thing is called gelatinization. Imagine a grain of corn, and inside that grain of corn is starch. We're going to heat it up to 109 degrees. As it heats up, the corn absorbs water, the starch absorbs water, and eventually the starch exposes itself. It becomes very thick and almost like porridge. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add enzymes called alpha amylase and beta amylase. Now, each one of them play a part in breaking down that starch molecule and converting it into sugar. Now, monosaccharide sugars are the only things that yeast can eat. They can't eat complex sugars. They can nibble on them a little bit, but they can't ever eat them. So when we're done here, we're going to have about 10 to 20% sugar. Usually the bricks is going to be in the 20 to 30 range. But the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take this, we're going to convert it into alcohol. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to take this, we're going to move it over to one of these 4 tanks. These last 4 tanks are the fermenters. That's where all the alcohol is made, every drop of it. Now, before you can add the yeast, you have to make sure the conditions in that tank are perfect for the yeast. We got to remember, yeast are living creatures. They don't like to be abused as much as we do. So anyways, what we're going to do is we're going to take care, we're going to get the pH right, conductivity right, the food level right, and we're going to add our yeast. We add our yeast, we give them calcium, magnesium, vitamin B, vitamin D, and olive oil. And the yeast come to life. At that point, they have 2 purposes. Eat sugar, make alcohol, and reproduce. And that's all they do for about 10 days. And at the end of 10 days, they're going to die because they're going to run out of food, or they're going to make so much alcohol that kills them. When yeast make alcohol, they make 150 byproducts. And we call them the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're going to talk about them in a little bit detail, just a little bit second. But follow me down here. The next step after we ferment it is we're going to move everything down to our still. Our still's name is Annie. Annie's named after Anne Bonny, who's the most famous female pirate that ever lived. Everything past this point has a name. So Annie here is a universal still, which means she can pretty much make anything. Does anybody know why she's copper? Copper has the ability to remove sulfur and sulfates. So when you're done distilling on a couple times, it'll start turning pretty black on the inside, so you have to clean it out. Now, is anybody a gin drinker?
Not me.
No, not really.
But to make gin, we fill her up with vodka. All gin starts out as vodka. This is our gin column. Our gin column's name is Ginny 8675309. So what we do is we take, the top section has the most beautiful basket you've ever seen. We pull it out, we fill it down with 17 botanicals, one of which by law must be juniper. We put the basket back in, seal it up, start boiling the alcohol. The vapor's going to go through the onion, the swan's neck, through that line. It passes through the basket. It's gin, it's that fast. Now the next 3 columns are Romeo, Juliet, and Bob. Bob really doesn't do much, so we didn't give him a fancy name, but Romeo and Juliet. Romeo's our rum and whiskey column, and Juliet's our pure grain alcohol. She has 16 stages, he has 4. So I'm going to walk you through the process. Remember, we have our mash and our fermenter. We have a special pump that's called a FIP, flexible impeller pump. Pump all of our mash to Annie. I'm going to fill her up. I'm going to seal her and start adding steam. At some point, everything that's volatile will start to boil. Ethanol, methanol, aldehydes, ketones, all those things. That vapor is going to go through the onion, the swan's neck, through this line. Then the vapor is going to turn upward. If I looked in any window in that copper section, I'd see a plate, and that plate has holes in it. The vapor is going to come in from the side, hit the bottom of that plate. Alcohol, which has a low boiling point, is going to pass through. Water, which has a high boiling point, is going to hit and condense. So everywhere there's a plate, the purity of the alcohol increases. So the higher the column and the higher the number of plates, the purer the product. So he makes about 140 proof. She makes 195. 190-ish to 195. Now, have you ever picked up a bottle and it said distilled 4 times? Distilled, that's telling how many plates. So this would be distilled 4 times, and that would be distilled 16. That's not the traditional distillation for a chemical engineer, but it is for a distiller. Okay, these are our gin botanicals that we use right here. I know a lot of people don't like gin, but if you want to smell it, it smells pretty good. That's what we use to make our gin.
It smells like it tastes.
This is called a DMA 5000. This is how we measure alcohol and concentration in water. This will measure it to 3 decimal place accuracy. For out in the field, this is what we use. It's called a Snap 51. Now this is called a Yama. We use the Yama to make a couple of our drinks. We also use the Yama to make our bitters. So for bitters, what we do is we'll put botanicals, more like lemon peel, orange peel, and stuff like that. We'll put it in here, put pure grain alcohol up here, start dripping it. This will saturate this, and it'll pick up all the flavors. So that's how we make the bitters. And that's what bitters look like when you make them right there. That's a whole thing. And there ain't no drink better in this world than an old fashioned, in my humble opinion. Let me get behind you guys over there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk behind the door here. You ready to learn a lot, I hope?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this is Annie. And we're going to fill Annie with mash. We're going to start heating her up. The vapor's going to go through the onion, the swan's neck. Remember, the alcohol migrates to the top. Water migrates to the bottom. Eventually, product comes out through Bob. Now, remember the 150 byproducts I told you about, the good, the bad, and the ugly? Where they come out determines the quality of that particular alcohol. The very first 2% that comes off as product is called 4 shots. It's methanol and acetone, and it will kill you if you drink it straight. Now, what we have to do with that, we have to burn it. That's the only thing the government allows us to do is burn it. The next thing that comes off is called the heads. Now, the heads are drinkable, but they have aldehydes and ketones. That gives you headaches and hangovers. So we have to take that, we carbon filter it, and we put it back in the still. The next thing is called hearts. Now, how can anything be called hearts and be bad? That's the good stuff. That's the filet mignon. Now, does it have some of those 150 components in there? Yes, they're called esters and cogeners, and we like those flavors. Those are good things. Now, at the end of the hearts, we run into something called tails. It's called tails because it's at the end, but it's also called tails because it smells like the south end of a northbound dog. It's pretty rough stuff. Now, what do we do with our tails? We give it to a farmer. Farmer feeds it to his cattle, takes his cattle, makes sausage. We sell the sausage out front. That's one of our biggest selling products. So not many people can say all their waste goes to a farmer to make sausage. Pretty cool stuff. Now, let's say you want to go to a liquor store and you want to buy a bottle for a friend. See 2 bottles on the shelf. One's $10, one's $50. Now, what's the difference between a $10 bottle and a $50 bottle? In my opinion, it's this. Yeah, $40. In my opinion, this is your $50 bottle. There's your $10 bottle. $10 bottle's going to have some heads and tails in it, and that's why the cheap alcohol gives you headaches and hangovers. You ready for a story?
Okay.
You go on a pirate ship. You notice that the cannonballs are stacked like a pyramid, right? And you wonder how they do that. Well, there's a plate in the bottom. That plate has holes in it. Take your cannonballs, put in the holes, build your pyramid. That plate in the bottom is called a monkey. I didn't name it. I don't know who did, but it's called a monkey. Now, a monkey's made out of brass because brass doesn't spark and brass doesn't rust. So this is the brass monkey you've always heard about. Now, the problem with the brass monkey is when it gets cold, the brass shrinks and all the cannonballs fall off. And that's why we say it's so cold it'll freeze the balls off a brass monkey. That's the whistle.
So see how your flight is shaped like a cannon? Right now it's loaded. See how the loaded cannon?
So this is a White Dog moonshine. Not bad for moonshine. I think it said it was on 80 proof. So if we're going in order, this next one should be apple pie flavored whiskey. Oh shit. I smell the smoke. It's like a lot of cinnamon and clove and all right. So this is a rapid aged whiskey. And this is what he said they made up them square barrels.
I forget. This is luncheon.
So I'm gonna skip up to the rye because they have it last on my list. I'm gonna try the bourbon last. So
Tastes like coffee candy.
this will be a rye. It's a straight rye whiskey. You smell like straight rye whiskey. I forgot what he said, what kind of rye it was. It's like a black Florida rye or something. What? Oh, son of a bitch. Every fucking.
Swirling it one over the edge.
Swirl job went off. That is very mild.
A good one or a bad one?
Well, usually I don't like rye, but it's similar to that rye that we got from the other place, but just not as sweet. It's that mild, low. I can't think of the flavors. It's actually pretty good. It's almost like a bourbon drinker's rye. All right. So the last one there is a straight bourbon rye at 95 proof. Or no, just straight bourbon. I don't want the coffee. I only like coffee and coffee when it's hot and made for breakfast. All right.
Smell it.
Straight bourbon. I'm trying to drink my bourbons. This just smells like fucking coffee beans. It don't root my nose. Even though they say to smell coffee beans to refresh your sniffer. All right, well, we're here at Loaded Cannon. We just got done doing our samples. Probably gonna grab 2 different bottles, pack them up, head home. So I made it back from Florida, and this is what I picked up. This is from Tarpon Springs. This is the Gremlin Wood Series Rye Malt Whiskey, 102 proof. I also picked up from Tarpon Springs the Gremlin Woods Series Wheat Whiskey at 102. And then over at Loaded Cannon, I picked up this Lost Legends. This is the rapid aging bourbon that they had. And I picked up this Loaded Cannon Charlotte's Revenge bourbon. So those are the 4 bottles that I picked up in Florida. Both of these distilleries do distill their own product and bottle it all. And they both said they do from grain. They both said they do from grain to glass with locally sourced stuff. And so if you're ever there and you're near Tarpon Springs, go check them out. And if you're near the Sarasota, Bradenton area, go check them out. If you've watched this far, thank you. Really appreciate it. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. That way you can check out more of my Gimp Across America series. Cheers.